Hello, I'm James Burkhouse, co-creator and designer of Tenebris Lux. Thank you for watching our gameplay video. We'll be showing you how to play the first turn of the game, taking you headlong into a world soaked in Victorian horror. New catacombs have been discovered beneath the streets of Rome, and our brave explorers are going to dive in to wrest fame and glory from the underworld. The first thing we do is make sure our materials are in order. As you can see here, we have our cards separated into their respective decks. We have the explorers, who act as our proxies in the game. Equipment cards are the tools we take into the catacombs, and finds are the things we discover there. The horrors deck will reveal the evil that awaits us one bloody encounter at a time. Narratives outline the stories that motivate our explorers, and the rooms create our game board as we play. Note that we leave a space next to each deck for discards. We have already chosen our explorers and set our arrays, the cards that form our dashboard for playing the game. Player 1 has been dealt the gunslinger, Warren the Rabbit Bonachance. He's a grit-type explorer whose talent is winning any combat with a lucky roll. Player 1 has drawn some great equipment for her explorer. Preserved food will heal Warren of the damage he is going to take. A sharp's rifle will allow him to make an attack at long range, and a diver's helmet will enable him to cross water hazards without rolling. Warren's narrative is the story that drives him. Completing a narrative is how any explorer wins the game. Player 1 has drawn Inheritor of Skies, so she will need to visit 3 specific rooms in any order to win the game: the Chamber of the Sun, the Cloister of Stars, and the Temple of the Moon. Player 2 has been dealt the Ragamuffin, Lian Shu. Her type is daring, and her talent is to shift through 1 extra room each turn, dodging the perils that might lie within. She has drawn a sword to help her in combat, a backpack to increase her hand size, and she has glasses which allow her to check the top card of any deck once per turn. Her narrative is Looter. Player 2 wins the game if he can equip a find in each space of his explorer's array. There is also a public narrative, a larger story both explorers are aware of. The public narrative is Headhunter. Each explorer becomes more bloodthirsty as they achieve victory in battle and take trophies represented by tokens. If they find the House of Skulls, they can leave 3 tokens there to complete that narrative. The catacomb has been built. We have a catacombs entrance card, and 8 rooms have been added. Each explorer has 4 wits, so they each contributed 4 cards to the starting catacomb. Player 1 takes the first turn. Step 1, breathe. First, she draws 2 room cards and plays one. She plays the Crypt of the Key and gets moving. The Cloister of Stars is on the board, and it's one of the 3 destinations the gunslinger must visit to win. Off he goes. Step 2, seek. This is the meat of the turn where the explorer acts. Leaving the safety of the entrance, Warren enters the meditant's cell. Player 1 checks the inscription and makes a room roll. When making this roll, 1, 2, or 3 means nothing happens, and a 4 or 5 causes a disturbance. In that case, the doom counter advances by 1, and the other player or players draw a horror card. On a 6, the explorer discovers something extraordinary and draws a finds card. Warren gets a 3 and keeps moving. The meditant's cell is bounded by a water hazard. Normally, Warren would have to contend with the hazard, but he can cross it without any trouble because he has the diver's helmet. Smooth. Next, he enters the Pit of the Fallen. The inscription gives horrors more dice in combat, so it's a bad idea to get caught in this room. Warren gets a 1, and on he goes. He arrives at the Cloister of Stars, and the inscription allows player 1 to draw 3 room cards. It's a once-per-game effect. The Ragamuffin can't get it if she comes here later. He makes the room roll and gets a 4. Now the doom counter comes into play. This is a track that reflects the awakening of the evil in the catacombs. If it reaches 9 in a 2-player game, the game ends immediately and everyone loses. The doom counter goes to 1, and player 1 puts a die on the track to mark the number. Player 2 draws a horror card and gives player 1 a look that says she'll know what's on it very soon. Warren's seek step is over, and now it's time for step 3, survive. Player 2 unleashes the cultists' horror. The cultists are insane men devoted to protecting and serving the evils of the catacombs. Combat begins. The cultists are the attacker, and they decide that the combat will be a battle of wits. Warren's type, Grit, beats the cultist's type, Wits, so he gets an extra die. Warren rolls a 3 and a 4 and adds his wits for a result of 8. The cultists roll a 4 and adds its wits of 3 for a result of 7. Warren wins and the cultist's card is discarded. This horror does not go quietly, however. When defeated, this horror causes the doom counter to go up by 1. Finally, player 1 rolls a die to see if her explorer discovers a find amidst the dead cultists, looking for a 5 or 6. She gets a 3, better luck next time. Now the counter is up to 2, and the pressure is on. Since Warren won a combat, player 1 puts a token on the Headhunter narrative. She's making good progress on turn 1. On to step 4, Beware. Player 1 checks her cards, making sure she doesn't have more than Warren's wits of 4. She's got exactly 4, but wait, the Headhunter narrative reduces her hand size by 1. She discards a card, and her turn ends. Player 2 begins his turn. He draws 2 room cards and plays the Chamber of the Sun. At first, player 1 is ecstatic, but then she realizes that her opponent has placed the card in a punishing location. The Chamber of the Sun lies beyond the depths, which adds 1 to the doom counter, and there is only one way in or out. This means the gunslinger will have to pass through the depths twice. Unless she times her moves very carefully, player 1 will really drive the counter up and accelerate the risk of the game. Diabolic. Now the ragamuffin hurtles through the catacombs. She is the quickest explorer in the game. Player 2 isn't afraid of a fight. He wants to collect some trophies for the Headhunter narrative and score finds for looter from dead enemies. He starts by visiting the Martyr's Rest, where all other players draw a horror card. Player 1 draws Bump in the Dark, which turns all of an explorer's room rolls to horrors for 1 turn. He rolls a 6 for the room, which means he discovers a find. It's the Ancient Key. With it, an explorer gets even more movement options, as they can conjure a door in the wall between 2 rooms. Next, the ragamuffin visits the Candlelit Crooks. It's a breathtaking place of relative safety, so it allows an explorer to travel through 1 additional room this turn. Player 2 rolls a 3 and continues on. The ragamuffin breaks to the south, avoiding the Hall of the Dead and its damaging inscription. She enters the Trove of Bones. It's a bewildering room with so much going on that explorers sometimes spend more time here than they should. The inscription requires a die roll that ends the seek step on a 1 or 2. Player 2 rolls a 3. The ragamuffin won't be stopped. The room roll is a 4, and the doom counter advances to 3. Player 1 draws a horror, the Tide of Rats. Player 2 uses the ragamuffin's talent to shift into the Crypt of the Key and avoid activating the inscription. The crypt is a great place to find lost things, and once per game a single explorer can grab a discarded card from any stack. The game is just getting started, so player 2 wants to save this resource for later. Player 2 believes that he's in a good position, and chooses to end his seek step atop the room that is the hub for his narrative. From here, the ragamuffin can strike out into the catacombs on future turns. With such excellent mobility, she can hopefully return the instant the narrative is complete to win the game. He announces that he is done seeking and hopes player 1 will spring a horror that the ragamuffin can defeat for a trophy. Player 1 throws him off by announcing that she won't play a horror in the survive step. Soon the game will enter its second half, when horrors gain additional abilities. The rats are particularly ferocious when the end approaches, and player 1 looks forward to the inevitable bloodbath. For now, she will bide her time. Player 2 checks his cards, and his hand size is good. His turn ends. At the end of turn 1, both explorers are poised to continue narratives they have started, and the doom counter is ticking up fast. They are racing each other and the dungeon to fulfill their journeys before the denizens of the underworld find and devour them both. Thank you for watching our gameplay video. Remember, you are the light in the darkness.